When you got your PhD from MIT in 1972, we were toward the end of a 30-year cycle of relatively flat or even slightly dropping, slight cooling amidst an overall century of warming. Was the biggest concern and was the impetus for the beginning of the study of climate change a concern about heading into another ice age?
Well, that reared its head in the 1970s. There were a series of 3 very cold winters in the central parts of the U.S. They moved around a little bit. When I came back to the United States in 1977, actually, to the University of Illinois, it turns out that was actually the center of the really cold spot for 3 years in a row. And people started talking about, really cold spells and are we going into an ice age, and at the same time there was a development of theory relating to basically the orbital theory of climate, which relates to the orbit of the Earth around the Sun, and that still holds sway, by the way, in terms of the major cause of ice ages and interglacials over 100,000, 400,000 year time frames, and even tens of thousand years of time frames. So the last major ice age was about 20,000 years ago. And so that was something that was rearing its head, and the things got tied together, and Steve Schneider was quoted somewhat out of context as saying that we're headed for we should worry about this kind of thing. The thing which really turned this all around, though, was in a big contrast was in 1988, when we had a major drought and a lot of heat in the Midwest. $40 billion in damage from that drought, and Jim Hansen testified before Congress at that time saying that it was due to global warming. He was wrong, but he got a tremendous amount of attention, and that by that time the IPCC was underway as well.
Now, do you have an opinion about what would be naturally occurring if there had ever been people on the planet? Do you think we would be naturally heading towards another ice age? I know it's hard to know.
Certainly in terms of the Milankovitch theory, you can make projections for tens of thousands of years into the future, and we're at an unusual stage where a number of these different effects are canceling one another out. And so for the next 30 or 40,000 years, in fact, there's no strong direction to the overall changes from the orbital parameters. If anything, there's a very, very slight cooling trend at the current time, but it's so slight that it's certainly buried in the natural variability that we'd otherwise see. And so there's not a strong tendency for that. And so we're not, the greenhouse effect that we're creating through building up carbon dioxide is not compensating for us going into an ice age or anything like that at the moment.
Could I just interject a point here?
Oh, yeah, please, always.
So actually, if you're a geologist, you consider the Earth to now be in an ice age.
Right.
We are in an ice age.
Right.
90% of Earth history, there have not been polar caps on the planet. So the actual climate the Earth has at the moment is very rare. Only about 1% of geologic history has a climate like our current one. So 90% of Earth history have had no polar caps. The planet's been quite a bit warmer. In the last 10 or 20 million years, 90% of the time it's been colder than it is now. And so we're kind of in an intermediate period here, which the Earth obviously doesn't actually like, because the Earth is usually much warmer than now, and if it isn't in that state, it's usually colder than now. So we're in an ice age, and we're kind of in a place where the Earth doesn't like to be.
Traditionally, carbon dioxide and methane have gone up and down. There's some very nice records from the Antarctic ice cores which show that these go up and down together. But the best understanding of that now is that the main changes are occurring from the external forces, and the temperatures change, and then the carbon dioxide and the methane follow. And so they may provide a feedback, and they may amplify the changes between glacials and interglacials. What is very different now is that the changes in carbon dioxide are actually causing the climate change. And so this is quite different, actually, than anything that's happened historically.